Hi guys, welcome back for episode number 95 of the weekly playback. We are getting closer to 100, so that's pretty cool. So this is going to be a shorter episode. I only played 2 games in the last week. One is a new release and one is an out of print game, and they both begin with the letter S. So that's just kind of funny the way that happened. Anyway, so let's just get started. Let's talk about Salton Sea. So this is a 2024 game for 1 to 4 players designed by David Bernal, and the art is done by Amelia Sales, and it's published by Devere Games, which happens to be one of my favorite publishers. I seriously love the games that they come out with. So this is a worker placement game. In this game, you're basically taking brine and you're trying to convert brine into lithium and geothermal energy, and then you're trying to sell those things that you've produced to various companies in order to make money, but you're also trying to invest in stocks of the various companies, and you are of course trying to upgrade your own manufacturing as you're going along throughout the game. You're trying to complete various contracts and so on. So each player is going to have their own player board, which looks like this, and I'll explain the various parts of this player board as we get into it. But you start the game with, I believe it's 5 workers, or maybe it's 4. Let me just actually take out all the worker components, the individual components. So let's see. So 3 start out on the board, which you need to be able to try to get later. So yeah, you start the game with 4 workers, and 3 of them are going to be on this area of the board. And as you move along on this thing here, this track here, then you'll be able to unlock more of your workers. So you start the game with 4 workers, and the way that this game goes is that, you know, you'll go around and around, and each person will take an action with their workers, and then if you're out of workers, you're done for that round, and then you'll have round cleanup and so on. So there may be some rounds where certain players have more workers than the others because they happen to advance on this track and unlock their other workers. So I'll explain the various areas of that board as we get to the various areas, but here is the main board, and on the main board is where you have the 3 companies, and you'll see that they're stock tracks, and this track here and here and here, as you increase, you're going to increase these little markers along the way as people start selling more and more to these various companies, and there are going to be these tiles at the top of each track that will be like randomly put out. So there are starting ones, and for the starting ones you'll see something like this, which will show like brine, which is like the diamond shape. If you sell 1 brine, you'll get $3. If you sell 1 geothermal energy, you'll get $6, and if you sell 1 lithium battery, you'll get $7. So they'll each have different tiles placed on them, and then as you cross these green lines, you'll remove this tile and flip out a new one. So you don't know what's coming up. So you know the price of the various things that you're selling will fluctuate. Here you're going to have money cards in denominations of 1, 3, and 5. An important thing in this game is if you spend money, you do not get change. So if you don't have the exact amount to pay for something, you're not going to get change. And the cards in this game, the money in this game, are multi-use cards. So they're used as money, but also actions, and I'll get into all of that. Over here, you're going to have contract cards that you'll be able to get and try to fulfill in order to get money and go up on various tracks and so on. Here are research cards, which can help you throughout the game if you acquire those. At the top are going to be objective cards that everyone is trying to fulfill. Over here, you're going to have drilling cards. So drilling cards are what will allow you to drill for brine. So there are, you'll start the game with a drilling token. So let me just show you. So everyone will start the game with this underneath their board. So everyone starts with 1 brine that they can try to excavate, and everyone's drill token will be on here. But throughout the game, you'll be acquiring more and more of these. And as you acquire them, you are going to need to drill, so you'll be moving down your drill into the various levels. So for example, if you drill a level 1, you'll move your drill token onto the top level here. And here you will encounter some rocks, so you'll take some rock damage, and we'll get into what that means. And then once you drill, then you can excavate. So drilling and excavating are separate actions, and when you excavate, then you can get a brine, and then you'll move your brine tracker up here, and you'll be able to uncover more and more of these tiles to hold more and more brine, lithium, and geothermal energy. So these are tiles that you will start with next to your board, and you need to unlock them in order to be able to produce more and more things. But we will get into all of that as well. The way you unlock these is by going up on that track I showed you. So you'll see that once your star tracker reaches this space, you'll be able to flip the first tile over. Then when you reach this space, you'll be able to get another worker, and so on. And if you reach the very end, anytime you would need to advance that marker, you would instead get 2 points. I don't remember exactly what area of the board that was called. What area is that called? It's called developing a business project. So when you move up on that location, it's one of the actions you can take that will cost you $3. You can actually place a worker here to take that action. It's called developing a business project. So let's just talk about the various actions, because that will help to explain how this game actually works. So each person has a player aid, which shows you all the various actions you can take. So the main action is to, well, one of the main actions is to acquire a drilling card. So again, as I explained, this board is going to have a number of drilling cards on it for you to try to acquire. If you get the most bottom one, then the cost will be whatever is printed on the card minus 1. If you get the one that's here, it'll be whatever printed there, and it's plus 0, so the cost is the same. And if you want the ones that are further up, the cost will increase because it'll actually add to the cost. And as I mentioned, the drilling cards are quite different. So some of them will have rocks on them, which will give you damage on your board, which you're definitely going to need to repair before the end of the game, because if you don't repair damage to your drill or to your manufacturing people, then you will lose mega points. So you have a damage marker for both your drill and for your manufacturing here, and as that increases, you're going to also be blocked from drilling or producing if you get to the levels where there's slashes through them. And if your damage marker is anywhere there, then you will lose the points indicated if you don't repair before the end of the game. So once you have completely drilled and excavated everything, then you can flip this card over. You may get some kind of a bonus before doing that. So this one, you can advance on the business track and get that number of points before you flip it over. So throughout the game, you're going to want to acquire more and more of these in order to drill and excavate more and more brine. And you know, these cards will come out on the board. So, you know, the cost of the cards will vary as indicated at the top. Like this one is $4. So if it's higher up, it's going to be more expensive because it'll be 4 + 1 or 4 + 2. But if it's at the very bottom, it'll be cost 3. And you are going to start with money cards, which may give you better action. So I will get into that in a little bit as well. So acquiring a drilling card is one of the main actions. Then drilling is an action. So you have on your player board, you're going to see the actions. So this was acquire a drilling card. So if you place your worker there, you would acquire a drilling card. Of course, you would pay for it. Drilling is right here. So if you place a worker here, that will actually allow you to drill and move your drill down onto that card on the level in which you're able to drill. So if you have a drill level of 1, you're only going to move it down 1 space. And so, for example, if you have a card that shows multiple levels, like this one, and you move down 1 space, then you can only excavate up to that space. But if you had a drill level of 2 and you were drilling down 2 levels, then you would be able to excavate all 4 of those. But you would need a higher excavating power in order to do that in 1 action. Another action you can do is to extract. So once you've drilled, then you can extract the brine. And then that means you will move up your brine marker over here and onto those tiles we discussed as you unlock more and more of those tiles. So if you haven't unlocked more and more of these tiles, your brine capacity is only 1. So the purple here is 0. This is 1, 1, 1. So you start with being able to hold 1 of each kind of resource. 1 lithium, 1 brine, and 1 geothermal energy. So you definitely need to develop your business more and more in order to flip these over so that you can hold more brine and so on. And I'll talk about what processing is and how you use the brine in order to process it into the other 2 things. We'll get to that. Actually, it's the next thing right on the list. So processing is the next thing you can do. So you can place a worker here to indicate that you want to process. Now, in order to process, you can do the first processing for the cost indicated. So you need to always spend 1 brine in order to produce lithium or geothermal energy, but the cost is different. So in order to produce 1 geothermal energy, it will cost you $4. In order to produce 1 lithium battery, it will cost you $6. And then on top of that, you can produce the other thing, but by simply taking damage to your machine. So if you wanted to, so the most cost-effective way to do this in terms of money is to pay $4 to produce geothermal energy and then take 3 damage to your machine in order to also produce a battery, but that will not cost you an extra brine. But then again, if you go up 3 spaces here, you're not going to be able to process again until you repair that damage. And in order to repair damage, to go back 1 level on the damage tracker is $3. So processing will allow you to produce geothermal energy, lithium, by spending brine. The other action, which we kind of just already discussed, is to repair your machinery. So you can place a worker here and repair up to 2 levels back. So meaning you can spend up to $6 in order to move it back twice. And that goes for both your drill and your machine. So you can spend $3 to move your machine back once, and you can spend $3 to move your drill damage back once, or you can spend all 6 on one if you have the money, that is. But it's a power level of 2. So on your board it comes with a repair power level of 2, which is nice. Another action you can do is to sell. So again, that's when you look at the main board and you look at the various different companies and see how much they are offering for the various items you have. So you're going to look at the tile that is listed there and see what you can get for each of those items. Now you only start with a sell level of 1 on your own player board as indicated here. So you can only sell 1 thing. And we'll talk about how you can do more and more in a little bit. So that's one of the actions. Another action is to enter into a contract. So that is this symbol. So you would place a worker on here, and then you would take one of the available contract cards. So contract cards look like this, and they represent the different companies, and that may be an end of game objective that you're trying to meet. So some of the end of game objectives are like who has fulfilled the most contracts with such and such company. So in order to fulfill a contract, you would need to, have all of the things available, and then fulfilling a contract will use one of your workers. So when you are ready to do that, you'll take one of your workers and simply place it onto the contract and then gain the rewards listed there. And then you will simply take this and remove it from the top of your player board and put it to the side. You only have space for 2 contracts, which is here. So if you have used up both spaces of your contracts, you cannot acquire new contracts until you actually fulfill them. So they will give you various amounts of money. Some of them may allow you to move up on a stock track for one of the companies. They will give you points. Like this one is really difficult because it requires 3 lithium batteries. So you will get 18 points if you complete this contract, and plus money. So, they give you various rewards. Like this one will give you 4 money, allow you to move 2 spaces on the business track, which will help you to unlock more workers and flip over those tiles so you can produce more things, and it will give you 10 points. So acquiring a contract lets you do that, and then if you want to fulfill the contract, you would use one of your workers on your turn and simply place it on top of the contract that you're fulfilling. And then you can buy shares, as we discussed up here. So on the main board, you can place your worker on the buy shares icon, which is on your player board right here. So that's that space. And then you would decide which share you want to buy. So you will be increasing your share tokens on the various tracks here and going up. And that will give you points at the end of the game as well. And as you're going up, if you reach a certain level, you will be able to advance on your business track as indicated before. Or if you reach this level or this level or this level, you will be able to acquire a special tile. And they are like, in a stack, and the first player who gets there at the bottommost level will have their choice. So the bottommost level will include 3 tiles for you to choose from. The second level will include the number of players -1, and then the top level will only include 1 tile. So the person who reaches the very top of a shares track will be the only one who gets one of these rewards. But there are a variety of things on these tiles that you can acquire, like this one is increasing on the business process track. Only one of the players in a game we played ended up getting some of these. He managed to get some points. So for example, he gained 7 points from one of them. So there are going to be these different tiles on the various stock tracks for you to try to collect if you want to. Anytime you sell, there's going to be a cube that increases. As that cube increases, By the end of the game, it'll determine how much your stock value is worth. So by selling more to certain companies, you're helping yourself if you are investing in stocks, because by investing in stocks, you are going to gain points at the end of the game depending on where those cubes are. And again, those cubes will increase in value as more and more people sell to those companies. Research. So you can place your worker on the research space and grab a research card, but you do have to pay for those. So research cards will basically give you some kind of ability or bonus throughout the game. So some of them are one-time use, some of them are continuous. So for example, like this one is a continuous one, I believe. So I think it's a continuous one, yes, because it has very small, a little continuous symbol in the very bottom corner. But this one, anytime you repair, it would cost you $1 less per repair. So that's nice. This one, like you could acquire a drilling card for $1 less. Some of them, again, are one-time use. Like this is a one-time use one that has to do with processing. So there are different kinds of research cards, and they cost a different amount of money as indicated on the top. Now, everyone starts the game with some money cards in hand. And the money cards you start with in hand offer better actions because, as I said before, these cards are multi-use. So not only are they money cards, but they are action cards as well. So for example, this $1 card you can spend in order to buy something, repair something, you know, because you have to pay the cost of various things, or you can use it for an action. So whenever it's your turn, if you have a card in hand, you can simply place down that card and place your meeple on it in order to take that action. So for example, this one will give you a repair action, 2 of them, at a cost of -1. So typically a repair action costs you $3. This one you can do a repair action for $2 and 2 repairs, which is nice. So the cards always offer you something better than is printed on your player board. So you're always going to get better actions from these cards than what's on the player board. If you use cards to take actions and you have your workers on them, at the end of a round, when you retrieve all your workers, the cards that you used for actions will go back into your hand. They do not get discarded. The only time these cards get discarded is when you use them in order to pay for things. But again, remember, you will not get change. So when you get higher value cards, which offer more and more powerful actions, you are not going to get change. So for example, here is a $5 card, which will allow you to get a contract card. And when you pick up a contract card, you will also get $2 and 2 points. So you can see why that's much better. So if you use this as an action, it's a way better action than the contract space printed on your board. So it's really, you know, lucrative to use cards as actions, and then you'll get them back in your hand. But I found it is really hard to come by money in this game. Like getting money, earning money in this game is really, really hard. So I think I've gone through all the actions, and so basically, having gone through all the actions in this game, you're basically drilling, as we discussed. You're buying drill cards, you're drilling, then you're excavating for brine, and then you're converting that brine, processing that brine into lithium and geothermal energy. You're using that lithium and geothermal energy, or maybe even brine, to sell to various companies, which will increase the stock values. So if you are investing in stock, that will really benefit you. You are using the various things you are processing, the lithium and the geothermal energy and the brine, in order to fulfill contracts, which will help you to go up on various tracks. You want to increase on your own business track in order to be able to produce more and more geothermal energy and lithium, and in order to excavate more brine in order to do that. But of course, processing is expensive. It costs money. So if you want to process things, that's going to cost quite a bit of money. So in order to get some fast money, you might want to sell some brine to the various companies. But brine is the item that will earn you the least amount of money. Selling geothermal energy and selling lithium is what's going to get you more money. So again, you're going to be increasing on your business track in order to unlock more of your workers and to have more capacity in your manufacturing company. One space I did forget to mention is you can simply place a worker here just to draw a $1 card from the top of the draw deck. So if you are really low on money, which I was multiple times, and you really kind of need to math out everything in this game, so there may be times where you do have, like there was a time where I really wanted $12 because I had a research card that would allow me to process 2 lithium batteries, which would cost me $12, but without taking damage. So typically when you process something and then you want to process again, you take damage, and you can only process the other item that you did not process first. So, but in this case, I had a research card that would allow me to process the same item by spending my brine without taking any damage, but I would have to pay the full cost. So in order to do that, I needed $12. So I had like $10 in my hand. So I used this space a couple times in order to get some more singles so that I could take that mega action in order to fulfill a really large contract card that I had. So sometimes you may just want to place a worker there just to get some single dollars. So that is really the gist of the game. So yes, it is a very dry worker placement game. You don't feel like, at least I don't feel like, the mechanics and the theme mesh together. Okay, so I don't know anything about excavating brine. I don't know anything about processing lithium or geothermal energy, but it really felt like that this could have been about any theme, and you could just have like various symbols on your board which indicate, okay, you're going to do this, and that symbol indicates that, and then you can get this kind of a card, you can process this. Like, it's super, super dry. It feels very much like a solitaire game. The only time there's interaction is when you might take a card that someone else wants. The only things that refill immediately during a round are the drilling cards. These dollar cards, you're going to have 5 of them, rows of 5, and those will not refill immediately once someone takes something. So if someone has taken all of the 5 singles that were available to take, then too bad. If you sell something, you do have the option of, from the discard piles, taking singles. So if you sell something, then you can still get singles if there are any in the discards for that round. You cannot draw from the draw pile. The only time you can draw from the draw pile is when you place a meeple onto this section of the board in order to get singles. So that goes with the 3s and the 5s as well. So if someone has taken all the 3s, which is very unlikely, or all of the 5s, then you are out of luck. So those do not refill immediately, and same with the contract cards and the research cards. Those do not refill immediately. Those only refill at the end of a round. The game end triggers are when the drilling cards are all used up, and at the end of a round, I believe you cannot refill. I believe that's one of the triggers. Or when 2 of the stock tracks cubes have reached the very top. So when 2 of the cube markers that indicate the price of stocks have reached the very top, or I think that's one of the game end triggers, then the game end will be triggered. I could double check on that. Oh, and one of the worker spaces on your board is to repeat an action, but it will cost you $1. So you can place a worker onto the repeat an action space and then do an action you've already done, but you have to pay $1 in order to repeat the action. And then of course, if the action that you are doing again costs money, then you will need the money for that as well. So where are the game end triggers here? Let's see. I cannot find it. And this rule book is nice. It explains what all of the action cards do in case you need any clarifications. It explains the objective cards that people are trying to meet. It explains the profit sharing tiles that you can get as you invest in more and more stocks, and so on. So that is really nice, and it explains the research cards. I cannot find where the game end triggers are. Maybe it's before they go into the details about all of the actions. End of game, yes. There are no more cards to draw and reveal in the claim deck for drilling, or 2 corporations have closed. So yes, that means when the cube has reached the very top, the corporations have closed, so that will trigger the game end as well. And then you will go to scoring, of course. So at the end of the game, you are going to score for various things. So end of game. So any points you scored during the game, of course, you'll have those. And then you'll also get additional points for the total value of action cards you have left in your hand. So you will score 2 victory points for every $3 you have. the shares you have obtained in the different corporations. So you are going to multiply the number of shares indicated by your token, so there will be a number next to your token, by the victory points shown by the financial assets value track. So as I mentioned, as people are selling to the various corporations, the cube is going to be increasing in value. So you're going to multiply those to see how many points you will get from the stocks that you invested in. The product in your warehouse at a rate of 1 victory point for each brine, 3 victory points for each geothermal energy, and 5 victory points for each lithium that you did not end up converting into anything. So you didn't end up using it for a contract or selling it. Your victory points indicated on your research cards with permanent effects multiplied by the position on your company board that those research cards are in. So yes, so each person starts with a space for 1 research card, which has a victory point multiplier of 1, but as you start to unlock more and more of your factory, you will have space for more and more research cards. So the value on those will increase. So if you manage to get like a total of 3 research cards, or 4 rather, so the 1 on your board plus 3 more, you would have a total value for the last one. The victory points indicated on that research card would be multiplied by 4. So the last tile has a multiplier of 4, the one before that has a multiplier of 3, and the one before that has a multiplier of 2, and then the one that you start with has a multiplier of 1. Your short-term objectives, gray stars, so long as you have unlocked the possibility to do so on your business development track. So if you were like me, which me and one, I think I was the only one or maybe one other player did, we reached the very end of our business track, which unlocked gray stars for us. So anytime there were opportunities to score points for gray stars, you would get those. So for example, those are on the objective cards that people were trying to meet. So if you managed to score some of the objectives, if you reached all the way, if you reached the end of your business track, you would also score additional points for the completed objectives. And I don't know where the objective cards are right now, so I can't show you, but those, that's what that means. And then finally, the long-term objectives that you have fulfilled, including any gray stars. So there's short-term objectives and then long-term objectives. And again, you need to have that the gray star unlocked on your business development track. And then whoever has the most points will win. So that is Salton Sea. So it's a pretty dry worker placement game. The theme doesn't really mean anything to me. It's not like a theme that I super much like really enjoy. It's kind of quite boring. And I think that it could have been any theme really. You don't really feel like the mechanics and the theme mesh together really well. So like when I'm converting, like, you know, when I'm placing a worker and spending money to convert brine into geothermal energy or lithium, I don't feel like, wow, like this really feels like I'm doing that. Or if I'm going up on a stocks track, I don't feel like, wow, I really like am buying stocks and I'm really doing something. Like, you know how in some games, like the mechanics and the theme can really mesh together really well. In this game, it's a very much a dry Euro game, so you don't really get that feeling from this game. You're just performing actions. You're just trying to optimize the actions you're taking to get the most out of them and just calculating things in your head. So it's very much a math game in which you're, you know, trying to figure out the best way, the best order in which to perform your actions so that you get the most out of them. Of course, you're also kind of keeping in mind what other players are taking from the various cards in case they take something that you really want. But otherwise, it's very much a solo game with other players. That being said, I really actually did enjoy it. So even though the theme didn't really mean anything to me, even though I'm not like a super duper fan of the artwork, it's like, you know, it's pretty. The main board is pretty, but you know, throughout the game, I didn't feel like anytime I acquired a new card, it wasn't like I actually looked at it and was like, oh wow, the artwork on this is so nice. Like, you know how there's some games when you look at a card like with beautiful like watercolor animal like artwork and you get it and you're like, oh wow, look at this card, it's so pretty, and you like gush over the card. You're not going to be doing that in this game. Like the artwork is just really kind of boring. Like, I mean, it's nice artwork in the fact that, you know, not that I'm an artist, but like it's nice in the way that it's nice artwork and the person who did it is very skilled, obviously, but it's not something that I'm a huge fan of, so I'm not going to be gushing over the cards as I'm playing it. So in this game, it's very much a game that you would enjoy if you are someone who really enjoys puzzling out things, trying to optimize the order of your actions and fulfill as much as you can, and you really have to feel like you have to be someone who's kind of comfortable with competing with yourself. Like, that's how I felt in this game. So when I knew that the game end was going to be triggered, like in my mind, I was like, okay, I have this many turns to get this done. And so I was really trying in my head to calculate things and figure out the best way to get what I needed done and end up with the most points possible. So in this game, it was a pretty close game between me and one other player. We were 1 point apart from each other, and the winner was, I think, maybe 20 or so points ahead of us. Let me actually just double check on that, because I think BG Stats would have board game. Let's see, log play, yes. So yes, the winner had 108 points, and then I had 86 and the other person had 87. So very close between me and one player, and then the winner, had about a 20-point lead. So yeah, so I would say it was a pretty close game between me and one person at least. And, I think that speaks well of the game, that maybe it's, balanced and all of that. So yeah, so if you enjoy games in which you kind of just need to puzzle things out and just find the best way in order to complete things, then I think you will enjoy this. But, it's not one that is going to be oozing with theming. It's very dry, and it's not going to have really beautiful artwork for you to gush over. But that being said, it is a very good game, and I'm not sure it's one that I will keep long-term in my collection. Like, I really need to think about whether I want to keep it or not. It might be one that I donate to the game library of FlagCon, which is the convention that I helped to organize, or I might end up giving it away to one of my Ko-fi subscribers. I really haven't figured out what I'm going to do with it if I don't keep it, but I think I'm leaning towards not keeping it, just because my game collection is really huge, and now I've played it, I've seen how it plays, and I did enjoy my play of it, but I'm not sure that it's one that I would want to go back to again and again, because I think that there are other games that will give you that same kind of satisfaction of puzzling out things and trying to optimize your actions that have themes that I enjoy more, and maybe even artwork that I enjoy more. So for that reason, it's probably unlikely to stay in my collection, but it was a very good game, and I really, really did enjoy my play of it a lot. So let's move on. Let's talk about Shakespeare. So Shakespeare is a 2015 game for 1 to 4 players, designed by Hervé Rigal, and the art is done by Ernad Demad and Niriak, and it's published by Istari Games. So this is an out-of-print worker placement game about putting on plays. So you are hiring actors and putting on plays. So you will have the main board here. And I'll explain, the various things that will go on here, and then each person will have their own player board. And this is a theater. You're going to have theater tiles, and you start with a couple of workers here and a couple of actors here, and I'll explain the various kinds of actions and stuff that you can do in this game. So I will say again that this is, I believe, is an out-of-print game, so you may not be able to find it. I feel like that there are a couple copies being sold, but they're being sold for quite a bit of money, it looks like. I do have the backstage expansion, but we did not play with the expansion. So each person is going to start the game with a certain number of workers. And so I'll just use these green tiles, for example. So you're going to have some markers on the board. So on the main board, you're going to have a marker here, here, and here. And you are trying to go up on these various tracks so that you don't lose points at the end of a round. And I'll explain, and then the farther along you get, the more rewards you might get, at the end of a round or at the end of the game. And then this is just a round tracker. This here is a point tracker. And then here you're going to have these little round tokens, and here you'll have some square tokens, and I'll explain what that is. And up here is the, what is that? No, that's the round tracker, sorry. That is the round tracker. This is the turn order tracker, and this is like the, I don't remember what it was called. What's the word for that? Initiative track. Okay, so there's this initiative track thing. So each person is going to have 5 cylinders, which are your workers. At the start of a round, you are going to secretly choose how many workers you want to use that round. And then whoever has the most is the person who will be going last in the turn order, and so on. So you will be adjusting turn order each round based on how people bid for that round. So for example, if someone decided they were only going to take 2 actions, use 2 workers that round, I don't think anyone ever used less than 2. Like, I think it's very unlikely that you would pick just 1 worker to use in a round, because that would be insane. So you have the option of going up to 5, and then if you end up tied with someone, that's when you look at initiative. And initiative is based on who used an actor first in the previous round. So if you were the first person to use an actor in the previous round, you would place your initiative tracker in the first space, and then so on. So that will be looked at in order to determine tiebreakers, essentially. So you're basically going to bid on how many workers you use, which determines your turn order, and then one by one use your workers to carry out various actions. So there are different kinds of cards that you will be trying to acquire. So one of the actions you will take, which does not use a worker of yours, is to acquire, to recruit, to get a new card. So each player is going to start the game with these recruitment cards. So each person has one. So each person has a recruitment card in their own color. And so as one of your actions, you will have to use this. Like, you can't not use it. So there's going to be actors or craftsmen at the top of the board. It'll always be equal to the number of players plus 1, I believe, or plus 2, one or the other. And so as one of your actions, you have to swap your recruitment card for one of those cards and then add it to your player area, to your tableau. So there's various types of cards that you might end up getting. So there are actor cards, and there are craftsmen, and so on. And you will see that all of the cards have like a money symbol in the corner. You need to pay them by the end of the game. So if you still have this card face up at the end of the game, you need to pay $5 to this person by the end of the game, or else you will lose points. Some of them will have things in the corner, which are the, wait, let me just remember exactly what those are called. So, anatomy of a card. Activation power. Yes, activation power. So, a few times during the, activation power is when you decide to use that worker. So if you use that card. So if you place a worker on that card, that's the action you get. So that is the activation power. At the bottom, you will see these circles that you are trying to fill in. So you are trying to fill those in with costume elements. So the game has a certain number of costume elements, and that kind of counts down on its own. Like, you are going to be putting these costume elements into a black bag, and then at the beginning of each round, drawing them. These have different colors and different numbers written on them. So you are trying to fill up your actors with costume elements in order to then get the, what's it called? The costume power at the end of a certain round. So at the end of rounds, where is the main board? At the ends of rounds 4 and the last round 6, you will get to activate any actor's costume powers if they were filled up with costume elements. So you are trying to get circles in order to fill up these spaces on your actor so that you can activate its costume power at the end of those rounds, but also those elements, as you add them, will get you points. So if the numbers that you put there equal between 6 and 7, you will be able to collect $2. If the numbers there total between 8 and 10, you'll get $1 and a point. If it equals between 11 and 12, which is going to be harder to do, you'll get 2 points. And if it equals between 13 and 15, you'll get 3 points. So every time you fill up an actor with costume elements, you'll get something based on the total of the numbers on these costume elements. And by collecting those, you will also kind of get something, and sorry, not the costume elements, the theater elements, and I'll get to that in a bit. So again, these cards, the actor cards, will always have spaces for costume elements for you to try to get as an action, and I'll explain how you get that as an action. So here, for example, so this is a craftsperson. So the way you're going to get costume elements and theater elements is by using craftspeople. So this one, you would be able to collect a total number of costume elements that equals 6. So if out here, there's always going to be, in a 3-player game, 9 elements placed. So let me just double check. Yes, it should show on here. So you'll have a player guide and it'll show you how many of each thing there are. So it'll show you in a 3-player game, there's going to be 12 value 1 costume elements, 12 value 2 costume elements, and so on. And it'll also show you for the tiles. So you will know like how many there might be remaining by being able to look at other people's player boards and looking at what was discarded at the end of a round. Because anytime costume elements or theater elements were not selected at the end of the round, they just get discarded and they're visible for you to see, but you're not going to put them back into the bag to draw from again, which can also be tricky because sometimes when you look at this, like for example, if you really wanted a blue and you know that there was only 8 blue elements and 6 of them have already come out, then your chances of getting another blue element might be slim. And I'll explain why that's important when it comes to designing your theater. So you're going to have a certain number of costume elements and theater elements, which are the square tiles, placed out at the beginning of each round. And anything that's not used will be discarded at the end of the round. Now, theater elements you are placing onto your theater board. The important thing is that your board has to be symmetrical. So if you placed a pink theater element here, you have to place a pink theater element here, unless you get a yellow theater element. Yellow theater elements are wild and can be used as any other color. However, you do not get special power when you select that theater element. But for the other ones, you do get a special power, except for the level 1. So if you get a pink theater element, then you will also get a coin. If you get a purple theater element, you will be able to send the other players back once on the mood track, which is not good. If you get a blue theater element, you will be able to go up 2 spaces on the mood track, which is good for you. If you get a green theater element, you will get this token, which increases your power of certain actions by 3. So there are these tokens which you can then use once on a card, so you will use them on craftsman, for example. So if you get that token, you can place it onto this craftsperson when you take the action. So instead of getting theater elements totaling a value of 6, you can now get theater elements totaling a value of 9. So that's what the green one does. And the yellow one, you don't get anything special when you collect it. It just serves as a wild, so that will help you to make your board, your theater board, symmetrical. And as you start to cover up more and more spaces, you'll get, if you cover up this, or this space, then you'll get points. However, you cannot place theater elements just floating up there. They always have to be supported by elements below them. So you have to build them as though they are actual blocks so that they will not topple over. So you have to start on the bottom row and then work your way up. There are secret objective cards that you can get throughout the game, which are queen cards, and there's actually an action on your board that will allow you to do that. So you're going to again start the game with certain craftsmen and certain actors. So if you place a worker on here, you can select a secret objective card or get money, one or the other. So the secret objective cards, they're all different and they will give you different objectives to work towards. So for example, one of the objective cards I had was this one, and I was super close to, actually I did fulfill the top part. So I did end up placing tiles in those 2 areas. So I ended up getting 2 points, but then I got screwed out of getting a matching tile for the last space on my theater board. So I did not get the final point on my theater board because someone took a tile that I really, really needed for that. So there's different kinds of, objective cards that you can use. Like this one will let you turn in money. This is the other one I had for points, which I was able to do. This one looks like you need to have a value of a total of 26 in your theater and you would get 1 point, but if you have a total of 40, then you would get 2 points, and so on. So by placing a worker onto the queen, you can pick up an objective card or get money. This one will allow you to select either elements or costume elements or theater elements totaling a value of 4. So you start with a basic guy like that, and then you start with some basic actors that will let you go up on the different kinds of tracks, the yellow feather track or the red feather track if you complete it. But the action you would take if you activate it is to go on up 2 spaces on any track or to go up 2 spaces on your mood track. So the mood track, you're going to look at the end of each round to see where you are. So you might lose points, or you might lose space on one of those feather tracks, or you might gain something if you're in the positive. And then at the end of each round, it resets back to 0. So you definitely want to be in a good mood at the end of each round if you can, so that you gain something positive instead of losing something. And you definitely want to try to increase on these feather tracks, because again, at the end of each round, you're going to look at where you are. And if you're in one of the first sections on each of those tracks, you're going to lose a point. But as soon as you pass this section, then you'll start gaining stuff. So if you are the farthest along on the yellow track, you will get 2 points, and then the second farthest person will get 1 point. Up here, everyone will get something based on how far along you are. So if you're in this section, you'll get $1. If you're here, you'll get 3, and if you're here, you'll get $5. And then here, based on where you are, everyone will get a certain number of points. So those are the various kinds of, what are they called actually? Acts. So they're called acts. So acts 1, 2, and 3. So one of the things about this game is when you use workers, at the end of a round, you are going to place X tokens on all of the workers, except on all of the characters you used, except for one. So you cannot reuse any of the same characters you used to get your actions in the next round, except for one of them. So you will always place a number of tokens -1 for the number of actions, the workers you used. So each player comes with 4 of these X tokens, so that you will place them at the end of the round, so that you cannot reuse certain workers. And then of course these will get removed at the end of the next round, and then you will replace them based on what workers you used in that round, and so on. So that will prevent you from, using a powerful actor or craftsman over and over again. So I really enjoyed this game. I thought it was a really good game. I clearly had a bad strategy. My strategy was to fill up my theater, and I was more focused on filling up my theater instead of getting actors. But I see now that getting actors was more important, and increasing on the various act tracks was really important, because I was like really far behind on these tracks while the other 2 players were far ahead. And yeah, so that was really bad for me. So I can tell you the scores that we had. So I was more focused on filling up my theater, and I scored, so I scored 12 points. The next person had 19 points, and the winner had 22 points. And both of them were getting more and more actors, and filling their actors with costume elements and so on. So I think you definitely, especially early on in the game, you want to try to get more actor cards. Which is something I did not do. But I thought it was a really fun game. As I mentioned, it is out of print. So I posted a couple photos of this on Twitter, and some people mentioned that it's out of print, unfortunately. And some people mentioned that they would really like to get it. On Instagram, someone commented that, they really enjoyed the game in the beginning, but then it got really samey after a while. So, it just kind of gets boring or old. So that was one of the comments I saw from someone. But yeah, let me know if you've ever played Shakespeare and what you think of it, and if you haven't, whether you would like for this game to be reprinted so that you can get your hands on it. I thought it was a good game, and it's definitely going to stay in my collection, simply for one of the reasons, because it's out of print, and I actually did really enjoy it, and I would like to play it with the Backstage expansion. We did look at the expansion to see what that would do, and that seems really interesting, because what the expansion does, the tokens that you do not bid in order to take actions, you can use on certain cards in order to take backstage actions, which seems really cool. So I definitely want to play with the Backstage expansion at some point. I think that will make the game really interesting. So yeah, so I am glad I purchased this game. I bought it a few years ago. It stayed on my shelf of shame for a few years, and then when my friends came over on Monday night and we were deciding what to play, I was like, you know what, I really need to start playing games that I've owned for several years and have not played. So I'm really glad I got this off of my shelf of shame and got it played. So that was nice. So yeah, so that was Shakespeare. So let's move on. So the next few sections of the video are going to be super short because I have no new arrivals to show. I still can't talk about Autumn or Flash 10 because those are still under embargo. Those are 2 games I had received from Devere weeks ago, but I can't speak about them until the next weekly playback video. So I will talk about those then. Backing. So what am I backing? So I had to give in to my completionist tendencies. Well, I guess I didn't have to, but I ended up backing so the publishers of what's that game? Chili Mafia, which I really enjoy. It's a set collection game that I really like. They have come out with the Ancient Games collection for Asia called Ludos. So I am backing the whole thing, which, you know, it's kind of annoying me in a little bit because one of the games included in that is Bok Chal, which they had a separate campaign for. I think it's the same game. So I think that Bok Chal is the same game that I had previously backed and gotten the pouch of. So you can pay what you want and simply get one pouch, or you can back the entire thing for $40 and get all of them, and they will come in a collector's box, which includes all of the different pouches, I think. So yeah, so I'm backing the entire collection, so I will just donate the extra Bog Chal I have, I think, to a game library or something like that, or just give it away. So yeah, so just because of my completionist tendencies, because I have Chili Mafia, and then I backed their other game, which I still haven't played, and I really hope I will get to, which I don't even remember the name of. Let me see what that was called. Some Asian theme as well. Reviving Kathmandu. So I backed Reviving Kathmandu, so I definitely need to play that someday. So I have that, so just because I feel, you know, I have completionist tendencies, I backed Ludos Asia. So I'm backing that right now, and then I'm backing Spires and Rangataki at the $1 level in order to get my production copy. So those are the only things I'm currently backing. I was almost tempted to late pledge for Wishland, and I was so close to actually, I had put in my credit card information and I was ready to check out, but then I was like, no, resist. Like, I have way too many games. I already have several theme park themed games. I do not need another theme park themed game. I mean, I have 10 Penny Parks, I have World's Fair, I have Fun Fair, I have Unfair, you know, I have several. I have the Grand Carnival. So, you know, in the end, I resisted. It was hard, but I did it. So I'm proud of myself for, in the very end, stopping myself from late pledging for Wishland. So yeah, so let's move on. So I guess I don't really have any channel updates. I know I'm like the world's biggest procrastinator, but I still want to reach out to some bigger channels to see if we can do some kind of a fundraiser for the cats. The weather for the last 2 days and today has been so beautiful. It has felt like spring. It just makes me so happy. So I really can't wait until spring, but the weather has just been really nice, and it's been really nice to see the cats, the stray cats outside enjoying themselves in the nice weather. It's so much easier to take care of them when the weather is nice because I don't have to like spend all this time shoveling. I don't have to spend all this time trying to get like a frozen block of water out of their bowls to fill it with warm water. So it's been so nice the last few days. I wish it would stay this way, but it's going to get cold again next week. I'm starting with tomorrow, in fact. So yeah, so, you know, I would still like to get them winter feeding stations. I don't think it's going to happen for this winter, but hopefully for next winter, I hope I will be able to buy them and assemble winter feeding stations. So I would still like to do a fundraiser with some larger channel if they're willing to, and if that works out and I'm able to buy them and construct them for this year, then great. Either way, I will purchase them, and if I'm able to do a fundraiser, but whether or not they get used this year is another story, because we'll see, you know, if it actually happens and what the weather is like. And I guess, you know, even if they're winter feeding stations, I guess they can actually use them in all seasons, because there's been a few days where it didn't snow, but it was super windy and there were plates and everything was blowing around. So winter feeding stations are covered in 3 sides, so the wind would not cause the plates and stuff to blow everywhere. So actually it would be still useful for even warmer weather in case there are really windy days. So yeah, so it's, you know, that's still going on, the cats. You know, no super close conventions coming up, but UKGE in June, I'm hoping to attend that. I guess I have no other channel updates, so I guess I'll just move on. I guess I'll just give a Palestine update. In fact, speaking of conventions, I found out from a friend of mine that he lives in the UK and he wanted to go to AirCon. And so he is, of course, pro-Palestinian, and he reached out to AirCon to see if they would have a Games for Gaza table. So in the past, they had a Games for Ukraine table where I think, I'm not 100% sure, but they would sell games, and then whatever was sold, the proceeds would then go to Ukraine. And they also had tables like that in the past for various countries affected by earthquakes and stuff. So my friend reached out to AirCon to ask them if they would have a Games for Gaza table, and if not, whether they would create one, and they said no. So even with the ongoing genocide, even with, you know, over 30,000, in fact, agencies reputable, legitimate agencies have come back and said the number is probably closer to over 100,000. Because number one, you still have so many bodies which have not been uncovered from the rubble. So you have a lot of people who have just gone missing and are presumed dead because they're under a lot of rubble. So the number is actually closer to over 100,000 dead. And that, of course, includes over 13,000 children that we know of, that we can name, like whose names are actually known. So again, there are a greater amount of people who have been killed whose names we cannot actually list because their bodies have not yet been recovered. So even with this ongoing genocide and ongoing tragedy, Ercan said no to a Games for Gaza table, which is again completely hypocritical. It's a complete double standard. So again, you see that Arab lives and Palestinian lives, Muslim lives don't mean shit. And this, and Ercan, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't like Watch It Played like a somewhat big sponsor or organizer of this convention? So Rodney Smith, the same person who issued a video back in November excusing himself, like making excuses for himself for why he will not condemn the genocide and why he will not call for a ceasefire. So it should come as no surprise that they're not going to have a Games for Gaza table, which is really disgusting, of course. I mean, to not have a table for victims of an ongoing genocide? Like, why? What is the reasoning behind that? Like, why would you not do that? And the reason that my friend was given is because they believe that they will not raise enough funds. So it's just not worth the trouble. So it's not worth the trouble to even try to raise some money. Like, even if it was a small amount, like, that's just stupid to me. I'm like, no, that's just a complete double standard. You just don't care enough to do it. I can assure you that if there was some other great tragedy in some Western European country where white non-Muslim people were killed, they would definitely have a table for that. So no Games for Gaza table at Ercan because they just don't care. And again, there's people like Eric Lang who are still, he posted something the other day on Facebook saying something like, people who just want me to talk about games and not social issues, like, haha, not gonna happen, or something like that. Yeah, he's still silent about the genocide. So again, it's only social issues that they know will not somehow cause them to lose profits or cause them to lose favor with certain publishers and designers. So again, a huge double standard. And again, these people are sellouts, but no surprise there. So the genocide is still ongoing, and the biggest update, I guess, is that Israel has announced that it is planning on doing a ground invasion of Rafah. So Rafah is the small, tiny portion that they have forced all of the Palestinians into. So they have forced them out of all of Gaza into this one tiny piece of land. And now they are going to do a full-on ground invasion of Rafah so that they can completely wipe out whoever is remaining, basically, and just completely remove them from Gaza. That was the goal all along. Like, if you still don't believe that genocide and a complete ethnic cleansing of Gaza so that they could completely take it over and turn it into their own Israel and turn it into a part of Israel and create settlements, if you still don't see that that was the intent all along, then you are willfully blind. You are willfully ignorant. There is so much evidence for this. Like, I don't know what people have to show you or what people have to say for you to believe this, but that is the case. And the fact that there is a board game about colonizing Gaza and people who claim to be all about social issues are still dead silent, like, hello, Eric Lang, Rodney Smith, Suzanne Sheldon, all of you people who make a huge fuss about colonizing themes in board games who are still silent, that speaks volume. Your silence speaks volumes about what kinds of lives you actually value. And you're showing the world that Muslim and Arab lives don't mean shit. So it's still very disappointing if you are a Muslim or an Arab person, a Middle Eastern person in this industry. I recently, just in fact this morning, came across an account of these two, I don't remember their username on Instagram, but it was like queer gamers or something like that. So I don't know if both of them or one of them is Palestinian, but at least one of them is Palestinian and has been posting content. And I had not seen this account before. I only came across it this morning. And I was just really happy to see that there is a Palestinian board gamer out there who has been, of course, it's very near and dear to them because they're Palestinian. I'm not Palestinian. Of course, I still care a lot about this issue, but I am not Palestinian. I have not been affected by this in a way that this person has, who is part of the Palestinian diaspora. So here is a Palestinian diaspora person what's the word? Is it diasporic? I don't know what you would call it. But a person who is of the Palestinian diaspora, who is a board gamer, who has been creating content about this. And I only just came across their account this morning, and I can't imagine how they feel. Like, if I don't know how much they know about the board game industry and how cliques, are formed, and how people only care about issues if it will get them clout in the industry, or if they know it'll get them some brownie points, and then every other issue they don't give a shit about. They don't want to lose profits. They tend to be sellouts about certain issues. So I don't know how much, these content creators know about that, but, they're very clearly also disappointed about the silence of the board game industry. So again, they are Palestinian, so I actually, I'll try to share some of their content in my stories so that you can find their account on Instagram if you wish to follow them as well. So I will try to amplify their voices in my own Instagram stories, now that I know that there actually is a Palestinian gamer out there. Before them, I don't know. Actually, no, that's not true. I have a Palestinian friend who is a gamer, and she actually commented on Eric's bullshit statement that he made back in October. So back in October, Eric Lang made a statement on Facebook, which again was completely off the mark. He again completely missed the point. And this Palestinian gamer commented, because a few years ago when I was being called dangerous for calling out Burnt Island Games and Kids Table Board Gaming for trying to silence me because I said Palestinian lives matter, and everyone decided to call me dangerous. This person called Eric Lang out back then for his take on the whole issue, on the Palestinian issue, and how he completely missed the mark back then. So she also commented on his statement from back in October and how he completely missed the mark again. And did Eric Lang respond to her? No. So, Eric Lang is someone who says that he will, listen to those who are from minority backgrounds in this industry and give them a voice. But here is a Palestinian woman gamer who is very clearly telling him on his Facebook that as a Palestinian, she is disappointed by his take on the whole genocide, and how he has yet again completely missed the mark, and he didn't even have the decency to acknowledge her comment or respond to her. And he's clearly not even trying to examine his own cognitive dissonance, or what's a word I'm looking for? I've used that, cognitive dissonance. His cognitive dissonance. He's not willing to examine his cognitive dissonance. He's not willing to examine his own implicit biases. I think one of the reasons that this issue, people tend not to stand up for Muslims or Arabs, because a lot of the victims tend to be Muslim, is because a lot of people are anti-religion. So when you have a group of people who are devout Muslims and whose faith is a big part of their life, and I think it's maybe harder for these people to, or they use it as an excuse, or they have standing up for them because they're Muslim, and Muslims have been dehumanized. We've been labeled as terrorists. We've had so many things said about us which aren't true. We are automatically presumed to be TERFs or anti-trans because we're Muslim. Just because of the faith we practice, we have a lot of assumptions made about us. And I think a lot of people who claim to be for all human rights have a lot of implicit biases about Muslims and Arabs, and that I think is one of the reasons that in their eyes Muslims and Arabs are dehumanized. They've given into that. They've become people who have consumed all of that propaganda and believe it. So that is one of the issues I think that is going on here. But for these people who claim to be for human rights, that is one of the things that they need to examine, because whenever it comes to Black lives or trans lives or any other issue, they always tell people oh, the information is out there, do your research. We're not going to do your homework for you, you should do your homework. Well, the same goes for these people. Do your fucking homework. You go out, meet some Muslims, talk to some Arabs, do your homework and learn what we actually believe in, learn what we're actually like, instead of just believing in bullshit about us and then giving into the propaganda about us and then not standing up for us when we are the victims. It's just it's just very disheartening anyway. So that is my weekly update on Palestine. So let's move on. So question of the week is inspired by Shakespeare. So I know I've asked the question before, what game would you like to see a new edition made of? That is not this question. This week's question is, what out of print game would you like to see reprinted in the same exact way? So not a new edition with new artwork, with new mechanics, new expansions, no, but just a simple reprint of a game that has just simply gone out of existence because, you know, they stopped printing it and whatever. So just let me know what out of print game you would like to see printed again as is, with the same artwork, same mechanics, everything. Typically I'd have an answer for you right away. Like, I know that there was one game that I really wanted. I think it was called Camp Grizzly or something like that. I think that that's out of print or really hard to find. Is that what it was called? I think it was called that, Camp Grizzly. And I don't even know if it's a game I would enjoy. So this is a 2013 game. Yeah, the artwork kind of, I don't know. No, I don't even know if I'd enjoy it, to be honest. I've heard a lot about it, but now that I'm looking at it, I'm like, I probably wouldn't enjoy it. It's a cooperative game, player elimination, and it's got horror and apparently mature adult themes, so maybe not. I've simply heard a lot about it, so in my mind that was one of the first games that came to mind, but you know what, I don't think I'd actually enjoy it, so maybe not this one. But let me know what out of print game you would like reprinted, and then maybe that will inspire me, and then I'll want that game reprinted too so that I can get my hands on it. You know, a game that I think that you guys might like want reprinted, I guess there was a new edition of it with new mechanics. So an example of the opposite of what I'm asking is Witch's Brew. So Witch's Brew was re-implemented into Broom Service. So Witch's Brew is a game that's out of print. It did not have a board, but it was re-implemented into Broom Service that did have a board, but same kind of mechanics with the cards and everything. So, you know, I think it would be cool if they reprinted Witch's Brew. I'm really happy that I managed to get my hands on that. So let me know which out of print game you would like to see reprinted. And until next week, bye.